Welcome to Simple Logic. I'm your host, Nola. In this week's episode, we're going to be reacting to some news in the sports world and some other pop culture incidents. And hopefully, you're following us on our social media platforms. That's Real Super Nola on Twitter, that's X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and that's Simple Logic on Patreon. And make sure you hit that notification button and hit the like button so that way it helps soften up algorithm so that way we can get some more subscribers. And make sure you subscribe too, okay? That's Real Supernola on Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Simple Logic on Patreon. So the news broke today that Mark Jackson was fired by ESPN. And I think about a month ago, Jeff Van Gundy was fired from ESPN. So that left Mike Breen and the NBA Finals crew. Now, there are a whole bunch of people out there who are outraged about the dismissal of Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. Guess what? I am not one of them. I am not one of them. I have been saying it for years, years and years and years, that Jeff Van Gundy at the commentary of the NBA Finals was bad for the game. Because apart from the fact that he has an immense knowledge about basketball, he spent half of the time complaining about the game, coming up with ridiculous ideas, always complaining about the refs, complaining about the biggest names and the biggest players, which to casuals, when you have an NBA Finals platform, don't want to hear. There are people out there that don't even watch the games on a day-to-day basis. And if you bring in casuals out there and all they hear is Jeff Van Gundy complaining about this and that is the impression they have on the game. And you have casuals out there even having criticism of players just because of what they heard from Jeff Van Gundy. Now, do you want to totally censor people from saying whatever they want? No, absolutely not. But it can be the bulk of your commentary. There's a lot happening with the game that you could talk about during the entire game, and you don't have to be bitching and moaning about the refs and this call every single time, this play and this flop every single. No, the game has the most talent. I'm talking about the NBA. Has the most talent it's ever had. And the freaking nostalgia about the yesteryears, about the Jordan eras, about the game was better physical back in the day, nobody gives a fuck. And I am surprised it took ESPN so long. And I'm quite sure the NBA had something to do with that. You would never find an NFL broadcast, better yet, the Super Bowl, where the commentators all they do is like berate the best players. Now, at the end of the day, this is still entertainment. Entertainment. You got to entertain the viewers out there by narrating the sport play by play, breaking it down in simple terms that people can understand, bringing historical reference that adds to the enjoyment of the game. I mean, take a listen. Take a listen to some of this stuff. This is a broadcast of the NBA's biggest name. Take a listen.
I think in the offseason, they have to rebuild this roster, right? And to me, it could be a trade with, for an Anthony Davis, or I think they need to explore trading LeBron for getting as much as they can.
What are you doing? Seriously.
No. What? What is that nonsense?
You got to get on the right timeline. If I could trade him for the Clippers into cap space, which would give me a better chance to get Durant or Kawhi Leonard, would I not do that?
Okay, LeBron James is not getting traded. Okay.
You got to put everything on the table.
Okay, so this was about 4 years ago, right? And this is when I think this is before they got Anthony Davis. The idea that the management is not doing their job and the number one casualty is the biggest name in the sport. The biggest name in the sport. And this is your suggestion? Was anybody going to actually talk about the New England Patriots trading Tom Brady ever in an NFL broadcast? I'm pretty sure Roger Goodell will send a memo out and say, okay, that network needs to dismiss that person and that big broadcast. That's not what we want to be marketing. No, that would be ridiculous. The biggest name in the sport. No, you should be talking about how the front office needs to do their jobs. Not to be moving the biggest name in the sport. And then what? A year later, they win the championship, which was ridiculous, ridiculous commentary like that. I was over it. I was over it. I'm over this whole culture in sports where every seems like every journalist, every commentator just wants to be the star of the show. It's like the Skip Bayless and the Stephen A. Smith types, what they've done to the sport. And I agree with Dan Lebatard. To just throw propaganda out there. And when they're challenged, they start talking about how they've been journalists for how many years. How many times have you heard Stephen A. Smith said, I have been covering the sport for 20 plus years? Sir, you're not covering the sport. You've been a commentator, an entertainer for the past 10 to 15 years. There is a difference. There is the difference between a journalist on Fox News and Sean Hannity or what Tucker Carlson was doing. Those were political commentators. And they were allowed to go outside the realm to just give their opinions, however outrageous it was. I mean, Skip Bayless made a career of criticizing the biggest name in the sport. And it just seems like everybody wants to do the same thing. And that's bad for the sport. So I'm happy about the change. Hopefully, we have a new era, some good commentary, some fun commentary. Yeah, it's okay to criticize, but make it in bounds, and not just outright disrespectful. And I'm happy about it. I'm sorry. I'm happy. Go away, Jeff Van Gundy. Enough of your whining. Enough of it. Curious to know what your thoughts about it. Do you think it was a good move? Hit us up in that comment section. Make sure you follow us on our social media platforms. This is Real Supernola on Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Super Logic on Patreon. And make sure you hit that notification button and subscribe. All right? Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next time.